Hello and welcome to a very festive live at the waterhole. My name is Taylor McCurdy and I will be hosting you for the next 2 hours. So get excited, get ready to send me lots and lots of questions. For those of you that have just stumbled across live at the waterhole for the first time, welcome. This is a live and interactive safari show. You can ask me questions in a number of different ways. The easiest is probably to hashtag Wild Earth if you are going to be using X, or as it was formerly known, Twitter, or if you're on the YouTube channel, even better, you can just comment away in the chat box. But what a wonderful day all the way on the east coast of South Africa in Tembe Elephant Park, where we've got a couple of elephant bulls just enjoying the warmer weather, tossing mud over themselves. I'll just wait a couple of moments to see who is here, who is joining us. I'm sure most of you are spending time with your loved ones and family, but that's not always the case. I have spent many times of this, at this time of the year on my own or working and that type of thing. But it's all good. With this wonderful, large, greater community, we can all be there for one another. There is a bit of festivities going on. So I'll be in and out just saying hello to everybody. Of course, this being my priority. But secretly, I'm just very excited for lunch. I can't wait. I am very excited to devour absolutely everything. And then Darcy Miller, you've said good afternoon, Taylor and Tucker. You've also said Merry Christmas. Tucker, my dog, is indeed here. I tried to put elf ears on him this morning. He looked at me and was like, absolutely not, Taylor. This is ridiculous. He walked around for about 5 minutes before he took them off. And then, Catherine, you've also said Merry Christmas. Great to have you on board, Catherine. And then you've said Merry Christmas to Tucker and, of course, my cat, Turtle. Turtle is having a play date with some of my friends. They've got lots of cats and she absolutely gets along with them. So that's a big Christmas treat for her. Now, I must be honest, I'm quite disappointed that none of these elephants have hats on or brightly colored lights or tinsel or anything along those lines on them. But anyways, perhaps they didn't get the memo. But not everybody celebrates Christmas. So for those of you that don't, happy holidays, and I hope that you are enjoying the break and getting some time off of work. But it seems like the weather is very different from where I am. Looks like there's some blue sky and it must be warm if the elephants are spending so much time at the water's edge. We've had lots of rain in Hoedspruit, the low veld. We've had lots of wind. And there's also a squirrel shouting outside my window. It's been snake season at the moment, so I'm always quite curious when the animals alarm, or the smaller ones, see if I can find a reptile of sorts. There we go. Mercedes Bean, you've said Merry Christmas to everybody, including the Wild Earth crew and all of the chatters. That's great. Thank you so much. And then, Catherine, you've actually said that you're spending your Christmas with a Wild Earth family. Well, isn't that lovely? That is fabulous news because you can all keep me company. So please send on the questions. I don't want to be chatting by myself, but I also understand if there's not that many people watching today. The other nice thing, of course, is just to be watching all the animals do their thing. But I have heard that the cameras have been a bit on the quiet side. It might have something to do with the weather, especially the cameras around Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces in South Africa. And I'm sure later we'll head up to Kenya and see what is happening there. Isn't this just so relaxing? I hope you all have the volume turned up as loud as it can go so you can hear lots of the birds chirping. And then, of course, the magical sound of elephants spraying mud over themselves is something that will always bring me happiness. Now, Bowl of Kittens, you said, what exactly does an elephant do in that hole? That's a really good question. I'm going to start right at the beginning. And Bowl of Kittens, please help me if I get distracted because it's the story of my life. I find it truly amazing how something as simple as an elephant walking over some slippery mud, creating a depression from its footprint, will become just such a wonderful place for many animals. And when I say that, I mean that a small warthog will probably come on through and go, oh my goodness, look at this mini jacuzzi. That's so great. I'm going to wallow in it. And they'll wiggle around and roll about. And then maybe your family warthogs come and join. And eventually that hole just gets bigger and bigger. And when the elephants come through, they like to dig it out, as you can see in front of us. And then it's just how mud wallows are formed. Now, a warthog is unlikely to go into these deeper depressions because their chances of getting out of it would not be very good. And the last thing we want to see is a warthog stuck in a wallow. But if it has dried out quite a bit, then it's a different story. They'd probably be able to climb up. But at this time of the year, when things tend to be a little bit more damp, they need to be careful. So what those elephants are really doing is, you can imagine the groundwater is a lot cooler as well. So they've almost dug like wells. And the water will start seeping in from underneath the ground, depending on how high the water table is. Of course, it can get filled up with rain, but though it will eventually be depleted. But it looks like there's good sources of water around here. And they will toss that water all over themselves. Elephants do mud wallow as well. It's really funny watching them do that. It's not something that we see all the time. I mean, they're not going to fit in these tiny holes, but you will see them sort of on the edge of a water hole, how they'll get into the mud and they'll lie on their sides and move their legs around. Almost looks like they're flailing about with their trunks, their heads, their legs, and that will smear lots of mud on their body. But they do have trunks, which is a lot easier, of course, using less energy to toss mud all over themselves. But I think it's more fun. And when you watch elephants actually having a wallow, you can see the pure joy in their eyes. But that big bull just came in now, sort of encouraging everybody to, like, right, move off, I'm coming in. And everyone's like, okay, that's fine. You can have that wallow over there. That seems to be the favorite place at the moment. Looks like it's got the most amount of water. So they'll just take turns, although not all elephants are good at taking turns. And then, Catherine, you said that you'd love to do some birding. You need one more to go to make it 400. Oh, my goodness. Okay, we're going to have to do something about that. I actually installed the Merlin Bird app because I don't have the East African Bird app on my list. And I think, Catherine, is this just Southern African birds, or are we doing East African birds as well? If it's just Southern African ones, then we need to have a look and check closely, see what we can find. But it's always good to add some others when we're at the Kenyan waterholes. Joan Mello, you've said Merry Christmas to everybody on Wild Earth, and to myself, Merry Christmas. To you too, Happy Holidays. I hope everybody is just having a wonderful time at home. And if you are celebrating Christmas, or however you are celebrating today, normally a feast is something that is included. Let me know. What are some of your favorite meals to make at this time of the year? I think, I can't actually remember. My dad has the world's largest chicken in the Weber at the moment. And then I think we also have a ham of some kind with pineapples and all sorts of other things. And then an array of vegetables and about 25 million desserts because my mother cannot help herself. So I'm really looking forward to the pavlova. That's always been a Christmas tradition in our family. Lots of fruits, lots of cream, and of course the crunchy meringue. Well, you're in for a Christmas treat, that's for sure. We're going to be heading to the Eastern Cape now to Founders Lodge in Shamwari to have a look at a very special animal. Oh my goodness, is that just the most precious backside of an animal you've ever seen before? Now, if you're wondering, Taylor, is that a rock? It's not, because it's got ears and you can see them moving, although it's the same color as the soil at the moment. This is a rhinoceros, swishing its tail, and rhinos mud wallow better than elephants do. So they'll quite often spend the days when they're exceptionally hot just having a snooze in a waterhole like this, not really worried about anything else around it. Now, I love the Eastern Cape. For those of you that don't know, I was born in the province and I spent a lot of time on the game reserves just outside of Port Elizabeth, between Grahamstown, Kenton-on-Sea, and sort of the triangle of private reserves in the Eastern Cape. And Shamwari is one of the largest, and they have all sorts of wild animals. Now, what I really love about the reserves in the Eastern Cape is that most of them were farmland, whether it was for cattle or to be grow pineapples and chicory and everything else and in between, lots of sheep and goats and all kinds of livestock. But to see these reserves, these smaller reserves that have bought up a number of different farms, dropped the fences, and try to rewild the vegetation that once occurred. Yeah, it's a very tricky thing to do when you've had plowed land for such a long period of time, and to let the sort of natural vegetation come up. Very different to what we see in the low veld. This is the thicket biome, so dense vegetation, only a handful of trees, and then of course the reintroduction of wildlife. So huge success programs. We're having a close look. If you've ever wondered what rhino skin looks like, there we go. Not as smooth as it appears from a distance, also covered in lots of little wrinkles, but nowhere near as deep as the elephants. Animal lover, you said that this rhino looks like you after Christmas lunch. Well, it's going to be me shortly. As soon as the show ends, actually, I'm really happy I'm hosting live at the waterhole today. Don't tell anybody, but I've managed to get out of all Christmas duties. My mom just popped in to say hello to everyone. My mom has just said, when are you finishing? Somebody needs to do the pavlova. And I was like, oh, Mom, I'm working. I wish I could. So I'm being quite sneaky. Just here for the meal. No, I'm only teasing. That's really horrible. Ivan or Ivan. Oh, no, Ivan. Definitely Ivan, because you're from North Carolina. I always get, just in case, because in South Africa, quite often when we see your name, it could be Ivan as well. And you said, if an animal yawns, does it mean that it is sleepy? Yeah, absolutely. It can, but yawning can mean a number of different things. So I often yawn when I don't get enough oxygen in my brain, which is all the time. So I'm forever yawning. It's the bane of my dad's existence. But animals will also yawn if they are nervous. It could be a sign of anxiety, especially if we start to look at domestic animals. It's obviously difficult to apply those same things to wild animals. But yeah, it can mean a number of different things. And then Lorraine, good. You said that this show is great. Thank you. It's a pleasure. Thank you for joining us on this very special day. And then Catherine, you said, can you come over for dinner? It sounds delicious. And a rhino is a very special Christmas treat. Catherine, you know that there is an open invitation whenever you're here in South Africa. And then Darcy, you said that I must tell my mom Merry Christmas. I have to tell Bossy Donna. I can hear her shouting out instructions to everybody. Again, I'm glad I'm hiding away. I've shut the door, but I can still hear her. And David from the UK, you said too many Brussels sprouts for the rhino. Quite possibly. If you start to see bubbles in the water from the backside, then you absolutely know that that is the case. But who doesn't love Brussels sprouts? I feel like everybody only eats Brussels sprouts on Christmas. I, funny enough, enjoy them, which probably says a lot about my character. And I did see a few other questions. I'm just going to scroll back. We've got to scroll back so far. Thank you. There's so many of you that are watching. It makes me feel so happy that we can all spend this time together. Well, at least keep you entertained. Now, I know it's not Christmas for everybody at the moment. I know it could be Christmas Eve still. So this is just a nice little treat. And I'll also be hosting the Waterhole show for reals tomorrow to Boxing Day. Boxing Day leftovers. Wonderful. Can't wait. Oh, Bolo Kittens, you said that you are cooking a turkey with miso butter. Oh my goodness. Well, I've just discovered miso paste recently. Well, I didn't, but a friend of mine makes the most amazing chocolate chip cookies with miso paste. I am not kidding you when I say those are the most Moorish biscuits I've ever had. I don't like things like that, but I would eat about 2 kilograms of them easy in one sitting. So if those of you that are keen chocolate cookie bakers, have a look and see if you can find a recipe with miso paste. It will change your life. And then Jen Mack, you've said that the turkey's just gone in the oven. Woohoo! Wonderful. And then Hillary from the UK, you've said that you are very grateful and thankful that we're showing you the wonders of Southern Africa. Well, we might still get to East Africa. We can't rule that out just yet. But when there is a rhino that we can look at, it's hard to say no. And it's best that we spend as much time as possible. But the insects are still biting, though. I'm waiting for a little terrapin head to pop up. Well, that might sound a bit strange, but there'll be little terrapins moving around in this water hole. And they can be rather intrusive. They love to hang around animals that are wallowing because quite often they have got engorged tips covering their body, especially near the nether regions, and will quite happily pluck them off. Sometimes they grab the wrong appendage. Hello, big boy. Well, he's now revealing himself to us that he is indeed a male. Oh, was that just the best part ever? Now watch how that rhino's curling its tail. Now typically when we see rhinos curl their tails like this, it's an agitation sign. They're unhappy. That's not the case that we're looking at right now. This is, It's not anything to do. The rhino doesn't know that we're here. There's a camera. I can talk as loud as I want, and it won't hear me. Oh, there's a second best wallower, a family of warthogs. So this is quite exciting. But now the rhino is just having a bit of a scratch on a rock, trying to get into all those hard to reach places. Look at the little bit of mud stuck on the top of the prawn. Well, off you go, big boy. You also see he's got a tracking device on his front right leg. You may have noticed it. There you go. And that is so that people can track them. There is a ping that gets sent to a satellite quite regularly so that the anti-poaching teams can monitor the whereabouts of the rhinos at all times. Lovely. But I think let's go across and have a look at the warthogs. This is one of my favorite things to watch is warthogs. Actually, warthogs doing anything is always entertaining. Sorry about that, everybody. The camera got stuck, but we will pop across as soon as we can. We're now at King's Camp in the Timbabati Game Reserve, which again is not too far away from where I am right now. And we've got chukma baboons and impala. Now, I see there's a question from Sandy Franklin, 69. You said, what is Boxing Day? And then I forget that not everybody in the world celebrates Boxing Day. So, Boxing Day is a holiday. It's celebrated quite heavily in Australia. In South Africa, we also celebrate it. New Zealand and a few other countries. I think the UK too, but I could be mistaken. And essentially, it was a holiday where gifts were given to people who were, I suppose, employees as a sort of a sign of gratitude for all the hard work that they have done. But now it's kind of changed. I know there are a lot of big sporting events that take place on the 26th of December, and then it's also associated with lots and lots of shopping. I don't know who would have money to go shopping after the festive season. Um, it's always a bit tight, right? And then we always try to just scrape through January. But anyway, so it's now become kind of a tradition that we see in South Africa. Well, at least my parents are Australian, so it's something. It's not something that we necessarily celebrate or follow any traditions to. It is also just a public holiday in South Africa and a lot of other places in the world. Oh, and there we go. Speaking of rosemary, not rosemary. Speaking of Brussels sprouts, Rosemary McCadney has said that you're making roasted Brussels sprouts and you also love them. That is fabulous news. Oh my goodness, I can hear the zzz going, and I'm not sure what's being carved. They're not supposed to be carving anything until 2 p.m. I requested that lunch be a little bit later so I don't miss it all. So we're just having a quick scan around the waterhole. It also looks like the sun is peering through the clouds, but the wind is just picking up quite a bit, which might make it difficult, Catherine, for us to do a bit of birding. But let's see. The other thing that makes it harder as we go into summer is because there's so much water around everywhere. The birds don't just linger at the main waterholes. They quite happily drink out of a puddle. If they don't need to travel far and out of their way to find certain resources, then they won't, especially if they are nearby. And just at first glance, I can see a couple of terrapin heads, but none that are out and on the logs. That's always fun to watch. Perhaps it's warmer in the water. Now, if you haven't ever seen this hide before at King's Camp, that's what that concrete structure is with the electric fencing and the big spotlight, is that you can actually go into that hide. It's not open to the public, but if you are lucky enough to stay at King's Camp itself, although it is going to be closed for renovation shortly, which is exciting. And you can sit in there and almost be eye level with the wildlife, but of course at a safe distance. And what a special way to see it. It's one thing viewing wildlife from the vehicle, but you don't get a sense of how big the animals are until, well, you're less than eye level with them. It's truly, truly spectacular. Oh, here's an interesting comment from Hillary B. You said that you sent your daughter to Botswana on a week's horseback safari in July, and she said that she couldn't find the words to subscribe to describe. You're supposed to subscribe to the Wild Earth YouTube channel. That's where I was going with that, and how awesome it was and unforgettable it was. It is truly spectacular. It's not something that you get to do every single day. And I always say a safari is not something you can describe with words, it's a feeling. And speaking of feelings, let's go check out Stony Point in, well, Betty's Bay in Cape Town and see if the penguins are going to be out and about. Hello. Oh my goodness. We've got one African penguin and then we've got a host of cormorants. Now, I don't spend too much time on the coast, so I don't really get to see cormorants. I normally see the white-breasted cormorants, but I'm just trying to see if these are in fact bank cormorants or are, because they don't look like they've got any yellow on them. Again, it's always a bit tricky to see. I'm just checking to see dark. Can't even see the eye color. But maybe some of you can help me. But these could quite possibly be bank cormorants. Like I said, they're sort of very brown in coloration, sort of blackish brown, of course. Can't see any highlights on them, any yellow around their eyes or yellow around the beak. Of course, you also do get Cape cormorants, which could be around 2, but I'm just not seeing any of that. Where's Byron when we need him? Byron, of course, was hosting Penguin Beach for quite some time, and his birding, he's also a phenomenal birder and he loves it so much. I'll take advice here. And then we've also got a gull, which we get a number of them. The grey-headed gulls, I was actually telling you stories a little while ago, how we see them away from the shore. This one doesn't look like it has a grey head. So let's see. Do you have a yellow bill? Doesn't have big black wings. I'm just checking through all the gulls now. Again, I live so far away from the ocean and haven't been there for many years. I was just trying to see if is it maybe a gull-billed no, really not. No, never. The grey-headed gulls are the ones I see, yeah, more regularly. But anyway, so we'll hopefully get a closer look. Sorry, everybody, I'm not controlling the cameras, so I don't get to choose how long we stay on something. But we will pass those messages on. There's quite a few more penguins on that side. Spas Lankov, sorry, just quickly going back to Timbavati, you asked if I've ever been on safari in the Timbavati, and I have. Yes, I have indeed. Not to King's Camp though, but I hope to at some point in the new year. And then Joan Miller, you said Stony Point is your favorite place. It is really beautiful. I have been out here and I've had a walk around only twice in my entire life. I sadly don't get to go to Cape Town very often. It's literally on the other end of the world. It takes me 20 hours to drive there from Hoedspruit. And then if I want to fly, I've got to travel the second most expensive flight in the country. So, I normally just stick around here, to be quite honest. And every time I go to the beach, I go back home to the Eastern Cape, to St. Francis, which is one of my favorite areas. I spent lots of my childhood around there. But it's devastating to hear, of course, that the African penguins have now become critically endangered, that there are only a couple, well, not that many left of them anymore, which is absolutely devastating to sit here and watch species disappear right in front of our eyes. Look at how beautiful the ocean is. I am envious, although the water's really cold in Cape Town, so I'm kind of not envious about that. But I do miss the coast a lot. The smell of the salty air. Oh, look at those different colors, the turquoise to the deep blues. Wow, really pretty. And if you haven't visited Betty's Bay before, I highly recommend it. Of course, Boulders Beach is a great place to go and see the penguins, but I do also prefer Stony Point Nature Reserve. It's just a lot more wild, and there's just so many other things to see along the way. We're also trekking the crevices because, as you can see, although difficult to spot, is a rock hyrax, and there are a number of hyraxes that live in and amongst these crevices. Great place to keep nice and warm, lots of vegetation along the rocks. This makes for the perfect place for these creatures to live. Strange looking thing, but you'll see them bouncing around in just a moment. Some of them retreating into their caves. I don't even know what the temperature is in Cape Town at the moment, but if it is hot, then of course staying in between the crevices of the rocks will be a lot cooler. Rosemary McKedney, you've said that it's nice to see the waves. It is. Do you know how nice it is to hear the ocean? It's like that sound. I almost want to cry. I'm like, I need to go back. The last time I was on the coast was in August last year, which is crazy. But I think what we're going to do now is take a break from the beach and let's head up to Kenya to check out, well, a lodge called Lintore. Here, an emerald spotted wood dove by the sounds of it. Now, there were vervet monkeys hanging around, but they've given us the slip. The last time I hosted Live at the Waterhole, we had baboons frolicking about. Did you hear that? That sounded very much like a hammerkop, which is a bird. They make enormous nests, and I wonder if there are nests nearby or if it's just an individual that will also come down and fish for us. Now, if you notice the concrete pillar on the right-hand side as the camera panned across, that is also an underground hide. And if I'm not mistaken, Lintoro has the original underground hides in Kenya, but I do stand to be corrected. But I think that that might be the case. And they are spectacular. They have some phenomenal sightings. You definitely follow them on social media or just, of course, keep watching them. You can watch them all the time on Africam, and you'll be amazed to see what comes through at night. Well, this is where we often have the most wonderful bird sightings. It's always good practice for me. Let's see, we'll have a closer look and see if we can't maybe find some dragonflies, some other little things that might be sitting on the vegetation. Wouldn't it be nice if a kingfisher could come on by? Now, Josh, you've asked me if I've been to this location. No, but hopefully I'm going next year. Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. I'm putting together a safari, so this is one of the locations on the trip. And yeah, oh gosh, I cannot tell you how excited I am. There's just so many different activities. One of the things that I think I mentioned that I think I've mentioned a few times actually is that there is a baboon researcher here. I think it's for about 15 years that the research has been going on. So you can go out and spend a few hours with a habituated troop of olive baboons. Now, I know that doesn't seem to be exciting to most. Not that we're feeding them or anything along those lines. They're just quite happy to be around people. They realize we're not a threat, nor are we of any interest. And it is so fascinating to sit and spend time with them. But to sit and spend time with them with one of the researchers that follows the troop around and understanding the family dynamics would just be another level. They do a lot of night drives here. One of the other highlights, other than the waterholes and the hides, is that you can go up in a helicopter and take the most beautiful images of the different lakes that are around. But there's no animals here right now. So, Josh, I'll get into that a bit later about the lakes, and hopefully we'll come through here again. But let's go back into South Africa now to Rosie's pan. Well, that's an interesting view of an elephant. Hello. Just munching away on some vegetation right below the camera. Not a view we get very often. Now, what are you going to do, mister? Have a drink, have a swim, both? Just having a quick drink. But look at how big the animal pathways are that lead up to this waterhole. Of course, there is a road that goes around the edge. You can see that 2-track. But then the rest of the pathways have all been created by wildlife. And that's why the edge of the waterhole doesn't have much vegetation on it from all the compaction of large mammals like elephants and hippos and buffalo constantly moving through here to have a drink of water. Oh, there's more elephants coming up. Now, Sandy Franklin, you said that you would love to watch the dam cams, but you're not exactly sure how. So if you go onto the Wild Earth website, you can have a look for the cameras. The one that is shown all the time is the Duma camera. And it has been, gosh, I think around for about 20 years or so, which is one of the original live waterhole cameras from a very long time ago. And then, of course, you could see that Africam is in partnership with Wild Earth, and they have an unbelievable amount of live cameras too. So if you head over to their website, you should be able to find them. The Juma Cam, of course, is one of our favorites because, well, it helps us out, especially when we're doing the live safaris. And all of you that do watch, because of the different time differences, you say, oh, there was a leopard at 8:30 p.m. last night. It was Tlalamba and Shibondo, or whatever the kind of case may be. Maybe you heard lions roaring. And then was a new camera that was just installed, which has really increased the quality and of the imagery and, of course, of the sound too, which is really exciting. But don't worry if you are not technically inclined, you're all good. Thankfully, they've made it simple for us. Oh, and then Rosemary, you've said that you only ever engage on these fun live at the waterhole segments. You said it never gets old. No, you're right. It doesn't. Every time I come on, I see lots of different things. Of course, elephants are always regulars. Although I think I have gone 1 or 2 live at the waterhole shows since last year without seeing an elephant, which sounds a bit ridiculous, right? Now, I apologize if the cameras are freezing, especially the ones in and around Hoedspruit. We've just had no luck recently with the internet. It's been a nightmare. Even our cellular signal has been absolutely hopeless. So I'm surprised that I'm even able to host the show. But that, of course, is going to affect the live cameras too. But of course, nothing is perfect when you're live, and I kind of like that. Rosemary, maybe you can say to everyone that is watching what your favorite sighting has been so far on these live cameras. And well, anybody can participate. If you have been watching for a long time or if you've only just started watching, it'd be great to hear from you. Then Nara S, you said that you love having me on the show. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you, especially on Christmas to hear that. It's funny, for the last couple of years, I'm always doing something for Wild Earth over Christmas. Last year and the year before, I was in Djuma and I was hosting the live drives. And then, of course, I thought, well, I can't not do my dues over the festive season. So I quickly signed up for this show. And then, speaking of favorite sightings, Hillary from the UK has come on and said, my favorite sighting of the year must be Dewey. So, for those of you that don't know who Dewey is a hippopotamus that resides on Djuma Private Game Reserve. And well, there's much speculation because hippo bulls move around quite frequently, especially those that are not as dominant and maybe don't have a pod or family of females and they're young to look after in a big body of water. Perhaps they're resting, maybe they've got older, or even they're just too young to be able to challenge the big bulls. So they'll occupy these smaller waterholes and live a life of peace, solitary, quietness. So Dewey has been around for a long time. I don't think it's the same hippo personally, but we just have now come to terms with, we always call Dewey the hippo if it is in Gari Dam, so where the Djuma live camera is, or in another waterhole in Djuma too called Treehouse Dam. Although there's also Scuba Steve and all sorts of them. But of course, they're just fun names. They're not their actual names. It's nice to get to know the characters. Oh, yay. Okay, this is maybe going to be busy. The elephants are coming in, and there's a lot more bird activity too. But Catherine, perhaps we're going to find your 400th bird. And then, Rosemary, just coming back to when I asked you what is your favorite thing that you've seen so far in the live cameras, you said the rhino that we just observed. That's your favorite one for now. Well, that's good to hear. We're lucky to get a sneak peek of a rhinoceros. Okay, Rosie's pan has had enough of us. So here we are back at Lentore in Kenya. And here comes a dove waddling over to us. It looks, what are you? Come over, come a little bit closer. Sorry, my feed is quite pixelated. Looks like an emerald spotted wood dove. We're just trying to find the focus now. And that is the bird that you can, for the most part, hear in the distance. That doo, 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 doo. Oh, this is lovely to see. Sorry, I think I spoke and I was on mute, so I'm just going to say what I said again. These look like mourning doves. Now, there are a couple of the doves that all look quite similar between the ring-necked dove, the red-eyed dove. They have got slightly different traits, of course, and there comes a laughing dove just to throw things in the mix. But with the mourning doves, you can see that they have got a lighter eye with a reddish orbital ring with red legs, and then, of course, half a collar. This one that we're looking at right now is a laughing dove. It's got a black eye, black beak, and then sort of some beautiful pastel tones to its feathers. Oh, Rosie Adams, sorry. You said that you've just come in a bit late and that you've missed quite a bit. Not too much. We've just been spending time. My brain is starting to glitch. I think I'm hungry. With elephants and warthogs. We had a rhinoceros at Founders Lodge in the Eastern Cape. And now we're doing a bit of birbing, which we've got a beautiful view of an emerald spotted wood dove. Now, it's something that we don't get to always see, but the way that the light was catching those emerald spots on the wings, well, it just proved its name, right? The ornithologist got it right, calling it something appropriate. Rosie, you've also just said that the laughing doves are really pretty. They are. I'm trying to think what my favorite dove is. I'm just trying to think of like the southern African species. It's a tricky one. I've always wanted to see a blue spotted wood dove, but I'm not sure if I ever will. Now I'm under pressure. I like emerald spotted wood doves. Let's go with that one. Although I do love the call of a mourning dove. It's a bit sad, but then they have this really interesting call. Almost sounds like they're laughing, but they're not. Hello, vervet monkeys. There's a male with a youngster. Whee! They're back. They were here earlier, but then they gave us a slip, so I'm glad. Now, the reason I can tell that that is a male, if you're wondering, is because, yes, you are seeing correctly. It's not a spot on your screen. That is a bright blue scrotum and is the most descriptive feature of a male vervet monkey. You can also hear them. They're all just sitting up in the tree. There's a couple more faces. Hello, little ones. Again, just the other day, or maybe it was like a week ago, 10 days ago, when I was hosting, no, maybe 2 weeks ago, live at the waterhole, we had the baboon sitting up in the tree. And just like that little one is about to drop its feces, oh, there it comes. We were watching this happen. We were just seeing big splashes. Oh, it's not coming out very easily. Maybe some vegetation has caught itself. That happens a lot if you've ever seen dogs eating lots of grass. Sometimes it's a bit tricky and everyone looks a little bit awkward and embarrassed. Nadine, who's directing today, says, no, sis. Sis is a word for, in Afrikaans, that would basically translate to gross. It is funny. Nadine, you knew I was going to comment on it. And now the baboon, why am I saying baboon? I've got baboons in my head that they're only olive baboons at this waterhole. Obviously they're not. But this male vervet monkey doing a bit of grooming, making sure to keep his coat in top tip shape, removing any small little parasites that might be bothering it. I also love their little pink eyelids. Just like the Varro's eagle owls, the biggest owl species in Africa, they've also got pink eyelids. Isn't this a precious sight? An entire troop right at the water's edge. Now, Catherine, you were wondering, talking about the male scrotum, is the blue color more intense on dominant males? Absolutely. So, just like with anything, a truly dominant individual is going to be the healthiest it can possibly be. So, lots of testosterone, obviously, a nice big family group. When you're healthy, your colors are enhanced, your coat is in the absolute best condition it can be in. So, yes, the color of the scrotum will most certainly be a more intense pop of blue. And again, sorry about that little glitch, but that's okay. We'll have a look at impala, woolly necked storks, and of course, a couple of elephants. Hello, Sarah from the UK. You've just jumped aboard. You said Happy Christmas to myself and Tucker. Thank you so much. Happy Christmas to all of you. I do love that you wish my dog and I. He's basically attached to me. And in fact, I think I can hear him outside the room that I'm in. I'll probably have to let him in just a moment. He had recently had stitches, in case you were wondering, so he's not allowed to play very much. Goes and swims at a really big dam, which is his favorite place to run around. And he cut his foot, sliced his back pad on his foot quite badly. He had to have a number of stitches. But now he's fine. Now he's acting like there's nothing wrong with him, although he gets told off when he tries to get into the swimming pool. We're like, no swimming just yet, thank you. It's been 2 days or 3 days. Goodness, cue elephants, here they all come. Big and small. My goodness. No, stay. Stay. Don't run away. Come back. Some of them not wanting to hang around. That's fair enough. And then I saw a really interesting comment from Sanjeev Roy. You've said that in the state of West Bengal in India, there is a cat and mouse game that's been going on for the last 4 days to catch a fully grown female tiger, which is moving from one place to another in a semi-urban environment. That is crazy. Isn't it unbelievable how something as large as a tiger can just hide in plain sight and just navigate in and around communities without people even realizing? Just a quick glimpse. That does happen in South Africa quite often, especially, or it happens occasionally where there are zoos, but we see it more frequently in the wildlife areas, like in Hoedspruit. When you hear, oh, there's a lion that's escaped, you're like, oh, okay, someone will find it. We don't often have elephants coming down the road, but in the communities, elephants do break the fences, or if the fences are not in good condition, and then they'll go and raid crops, because why would you not go and eat those delicious treats? So there is quite a bit of animals. I mean, leopards just roam Hoedspruit. There's no keeping them in or out. They are constantly captured on the CCTV cameras around the town. And there's even one male leopard known as the Hatton Creek male. And he basically lives in the center of town in a drainage system that runs just along a restaurant called the Hatton Creek, which I find hysterical. Interesting world we live in, right? That's why everybody wants to come in and spend some time in South Africa, and in fact buy houses here. Sandy Franklin, you said that you sign your dog's names to the cards and presents. I do that too. Tucker and Turtle always get a mention. Well, now Turtle's only been in our family for a little while. And then Spas Lankov, you've said that it's great to spend time with the elephants as well as with the vervet monkeys. I can't even say it's a pleasure because they just arrived. They just happen to be on the cameras. And then Nadine, who's now directing, is just like, oh, well, we'll go there. So thank you, animals, for being on the cameras, because we were worried that you would all not feature on this very special day. I also love that the woolly neck stores are just unperturbed by the elephants. They don't even seem to really worry about walking right next to them. Good place for the storks, lots of insects, and of course they are not opposed to catching creatures in the water. And then You know what, Rosemary? I was thinking the same thing. This big elephant bull that's closest to us, you said that he's got such tattered ears. He does indeed. He really does. And I think we saw him the other day. I was mentioning how that's such a good identifying feature. Although lots of elephants can have tattered ears, of course, but that's quite extreme. And then on his left ear, sort of in this, not quite in the center, but on the edge of his ear towards the middle, you can see there's another big notch that's been taken out. And then you can look at the elephant on the right hand side of it too, also has quite tatty ears. That can be caused by a number of different things. Vegetation, ripping it on thorns, that type of thing. Quite often then when it heals, maybe there's a little infection. And then because the skin is so thin, it doesn't necessarily, it heals pretty quickly, right? But if there is an infection, a lot of it is going to be eaten away at and can create holes and all sorts of shapes. And I wouldn't put it past the biting flies, especially if it's a new wound. Have you ever seen what the lion's or leopard's ears look like as they live out their lives? It almost looks like they've got little nicks taken out of them too. Those biting flies are absolutely horrific and can do so much damage. You see the same thing in domestic dogs too. But these days, with people vaccinating and treating and putting tick and flea powders and all sorts of other things down, I don't see it as bad. Like my dog, for example, doesn't have any of that, but I've seen dogs that are living out in the communities and are not kept in a household, that they tend to have very similar ears to that. Now, this is an interesting question from Mr. Nick Power. You said, do elephants celebrate positive events in the herds? Absolutely. Now, it might not be clapping and cheering or whistling like we do, but they do communicate in a slightly different way. And they make a variety of vocalizations. So I always talk about this. For those of you that are wanting to learn more about elephant vocalizations, I highly recommend going to a site called Elephant Voices. And has been created by Dr. Joyce Poole, one of the leading elephant researchers in the world. She is incredible. I've been lucky enough to meet her when Wild Earth was up in the Masai Mara quite a few years ago. It was one of my greatest pleasures meeting her and her brother, who's a famous wildlife filmmaker. And she has recorded a number of different elephant vocalizations, those that we can hear, and then also those infrasounds or low frequencies that we can't necessarily hear. And she then puts up a video of the behavior that is being witnessed at that time. And that's just given us great insight, especially as guides or nature enthusiasts or biologists, to be able to understand what does that sound mean and what is the animal doing. Because elephants might make similar vocalizations, but their body language will be slightly different. So it could mean different things. But when elephants get excited, they often all come together. There might be some high-pitched trumpets. And some might even confuse it for like, sort of distress sound. So absolutely, it's like when an elephant gives birth and the rest of the herd is there, you can definitely see they come around and celebrate the birth of a new calf. And then Pamela from the UK, you said it's so great to have an elephant Christmas, right? Couldn't think of anything else. My favorite animals in the entire world. Well, I love absolutely everything, but there's just something so special about elephants. I'm curious about that bull that's just standing there on his own. He's got really long tusks, right? I wonder how old he is because I'm looking at him and he doesn't look as big as some of the other bulls in terms of stature. Look how small his head is. Look how long those front legs are in comparison to the size of his body. That's a big bull. Now, when I look at him, he hasn't got much of a depression around his temples. He doesn't seem like a particularly old individual. Now, you might find on Tembe Elephant Park, they'll have a list of the elephants up and coming tuskers, but I would want to put him in his sort of maybe mid 30s, but then again, maybe even a little bit younger than that. And then Rosemary just commenting on the tattered ears, you said with ears that are so large and round, they're bound to get roughed up. Absolutely, especially through all the prickly vegetation. But of course, we can't get enough of elephants. So let's head across to Kenya now and check out the old Daniel camera. Oh no, never mind. Some technical difficulties, so we'll stay here for a little bit longer. And then we're just chatting about the tiger that's on the loose in India at the moment. And Sanjeev Roy has come back and said that one of the saving points for this tiger is that it's actually fitted with a GPS collar, so the officials are able to track her. And so far, she's traveled over 200 kilometers. That's unbelievable. Now, you may have seen some of the elephants here have got tracking devices on them too. And that again is just such a great thing. It gives scientists and researchers, biologists, you name it, an insight on their movements. Now, one of my other favorite things and websites is that of Elephants Alive. They collar a lot of elephants in the greater Kruger region. And it's just so fascinating to see how at different times of the year they move. And then, by tracking the same individuals for long periods of time, that data that is collected is invaluable. You can start to then understand what was happening with the seasons at that point. Was it a drought? Are they, specifically going back to one area when times are absolutely harsh? When when it's good rains, where are they sort of moving? Has there been any type of conflict in a specific area where those elephants were and they've moved away? There's lots of different ways you can kind of look at it, but it starts to get quite interesting. Some people complain and say it's an eyesore, but just as Sanjeev said, it can often be a saving grace because we know that unfortunately there are people that do hunt, there are people that shoot wildlife illegally, this kind of thing. And if an animal has a collar on it, it's less likely to be targeted. But I'll never forget the team from Elephants Alive saying to me, they would love to be able to collar a lot of these up and coming tuskers to try and protect them. Although elephants in South Africa, we're quite lucky; they are well looked after. But we all know what humans are like, right? But they just find it very difficult because you want to collar one of those bulls when they're younger, but you never know when a tusker is going to be a tusker. It was suggested that normally between the ages of 35 and 45, they have their largest growth spurt in terms of tusk size. That's a tricky thing to do, but so fascinating. So go ahead, have a look at those sites that I mentioned, Elephant Voices, go check out Elephants Alive. They're just doing great work and they give a lot of insight into elephants. And for those of you that are wanting to learn more, it's a great opportunity. Nikki, now you've asked how are elephant collars different compared to wild dog collars or leopard collars? Well, size. Now I've handled smaller collars that would be used on a lion, a leopard, a wild dog, to the rhino collars that we've seen that go around their foot. we almost call them ankle tracking collars, not quite the ankle though. And then, of course, elephant collars. So the elephant collars are enormous. The battery that is on that collar is huge. They also have to put a weight. So you'll be able to see, look at this elephant coming on the left-hand side. Watch this. So he's got a collar on him. Where you can see there's a big bit right at the top, and then there's also a bit that's dangling below. Now, it's important that they have a weight on a collar around an elephant. It doesn't fit very snug. It hangs quite loose because it will get caught on vegetation, although the materials are very strong and difficult to break. So that they just need to make sure that the collar stays upright at all times. And maybe some of you remember a couple of years ago when during the pandemic, when Wild Earth had partnered with Eco Training and we were driving around on Pridelands, there was a couple of elephant bulls that we would follow. And Kumo, who was one of them that was followed for many years by elephants alive, his collar actually fell off. And there was quite a panic about it because one day it just stopped, it stopped moving. It was just giving a signal in the same spot. Now you can imagine the researchers, their heart drops to the floor because an animal that's stationary for that period of time means that it might not be alive. So all panic set in. So anyways, I got a message. I said, please can I go and try and find it? And I went around, I got GPS coordinates, and then I found it in the bush. It had broken. And I had to pick that collar up, and I kid you not, carrying it with one hand was almost impossible. I had to use two hands, and even then it was really, really heavy. So they're very much the same. The battery life, it depends normally, if I'm not mistaken, please don't quote me, it's about 2 to 3 years that it lasts for, and then it needs to be replaced again. So the biggest goal is that hopefully these batteries that are used, these big lithium batteries, is that they will get smaller so that they're less intrusive, but still have the lifespan of a smaller battery. But now people are also using solar sort of tags that they put on the ears of animals. They're doing the testing with giraffe, they've done it with buffalo and all sorts of things. I don't know how well it would work with an elephant because of the amount of mud they cover all over their bodies. And as you know, if the solar panels are covered in mud, they're not going to recharge. so many herds coming through, which is really just wonderful. I think what we're going to do, we're going to see how long it lasts, but let's go back to Kenya and see if the baboons are now around the waterhole at Lentore. Yes, they are. Have a listen to their vocalizations. Now, this is something that I'd love to learn more about, but it is going to require me to sit with a researcher and go through it step by step. But understanding the different vocalizations of baboons. Now, for most of us, we can all identify the sound of a baboon alarming, so that deep bark that they make. And in some cases, depending on the area, baboons will actually make different alarm calls for different predators. So my favorite example is in South or Southern Africa, when the baboons see a lion, it's a very ah, ah sort of noise. And then, of course, when it's a leopard or something else, or just a territorial dispute, actually looks like one of the males has a big injury on his back legs. They go, bah, boo. I can't obviously do the noise very well, but you all know what I mean. And then, of course, we know the sounds of mating baboons because why not? Now, I would love to see the baboon that had the injury on the back of its leg. It looked like a big male. You can see some of the dominant males now coming down to drink. And it could have been a youngster that just got, well, caught looking for trouble as they normally do. Those teeth are so sharp, but also don't underestimate their nails. Even though they aren't sharp and hooked like that of a predator, look at how we as humans, even with our nails cut short, how we can scratch and open up the skin. Now, their nails are not going to be as filed down as mine, at least. It's always my absolute worst because I'm always working around in the bush. My nails get so dirty, so I have them as short as I possibly can. But that's one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my life. And funny enough, one of the biggest baboon fights I've ever witnessed was in Kenya, but in the Mara Triangle with olive baboons. It was a huge fight. Looked like a young male that was trying to cause a bit of a scene and maybe steal the spot of an individual within the oligarchy. But he did not win. The entire troop, but mainly the big males, the dominant individuals, came back and gave that one a bit of a hiding. Bush girl, you said do baboons also have accents? I'm sure they do. This is a different species from the chakma baboons that we see in southern Africa for the most part. Um, so yeah, I'm sure that they slightly have some kind of accent. It's not something I've really paid much attention to, but we see it in birds all the time. So why not mammal species? Sanjeev, you've asked. Oh no, you've not asked. You said sometimes a leopard is attacked by a group of baboons. You are spot on by saying that, Sanjeev. They absolutely do. More often than not, baboons will attack leopards. It's just because we don't see it, we think that doesn't happen. But baboons love to hunt baboons. No, leopards love to hunt baboons, especially at night when they're roosting up in the trees and unsuspectedly will just race up the trunks of the tree and try and grab one. Look at this big boy. Oh, he's huge. Look at his stature. My goodness. And um, and then of course the tables can turn quite a bit when a leopard makes a silly move, and we've seen that before, where it was Tandy. I'm trying to think, and it was Tumba. So Tundi and Tumba, and I forgot what his sister's name was. I don't think she'd had a name just yet, but sadly she didn't make it from that litter. They were chased by baboons. It was such a crazy sight. I've seen it before as well when I was working at Sabi Sabi down in the southern Sabi sands, where a baboon leopard by the name of Warthog Wallow, she was chased by baboons. She also used to be a master at hunting them, though, at night in front of Bush Lodge. And then I saw there was a video recently. I can't for the life of me remember where it was. And it was a leopard. that had a kill right in front of one of the lodges. I think it might have been in the Sabi Sands, and there was a troop of baboons sitting around it, and it looked like there was one male baboon kind of just asserting his dominance, saying, "Hey, listen, you're not that big and scary," and it almost looked like it was pulling its tail just to torment it, but the male leopard didn't move. But I thought that was quite funny. But you should be able to find that on social media. It's just recently been doing its rounds. Lady Macbeth, you've said that dolphins and whales have different dialects. Absolutely, they do. And again, each individual. So each whale will also have a very different dialect. And that's important for the youngsters to be able to tell the differences between the different adults to make sure that I'm actually with mom. So she'll speak in a specific way, and often those accents are transferred to the youngsters too. But right, that's just like with us. If you've got an Irish accent and you've got a child, chances are that your kid's going to have an Irish accent too. Even if you're living in South Africa, you probably have a nice mix between the two. And then Spuz Lankov, you've asked if I've ever seen female baboons fighting. I have, but not as intense as with male baboons. And when I did see the females having a bit of a squabble, I have no idea what it was over. Some of the bigger male baboons came in too. Oh, look, there's the hammerkop, that bird that I was telling you about that was making that noise. Look at those two youngsters. They look quite curious at the hammerkop, so this could be quite entertaining. See if they stick around. That little one especially keeps coming back. Don't you dare grab that bird. They will, of course. It wants to. It wants to do something that it's not supposed to, but it's uncertain of whether or not it should. And the hammerkop completely unperturbed, which surprises me. I wouldn't get within 1 meter of baboons. They do scare me. I love them, but I have a healthy respect for them. I can't tell you how many times I've watched baboons actually hunting. I always talk about the story where the most craziest sightings I've ever had. And again, I don't know if I'm going to see something exactly like that, but where two male baboons stalked a female impala that was busy giving birth. That was the craziest thing in the Lower Zambezi National Park. Also watched the baboons in the Lower Zambezi National Park in Zambia hiding in a bush and grabbing piglets as a female warthog went past. And then, of course, just as they sit and do their thing, a dove came about. And one of the baboons just grabbed the dove and ate it right there and then, which was surprising. But you can see that young baboon, all the young ones are coming up now. So interesting. I'm definitely going to stay here to see how the scene sort of plays out. Yay, baboon, behave. Oh my gosh, there's so much baboon feces around. The smell of it is also my absolute worst. really am enjoying the baboons. We don't get to sit and watch them like this. I think it's important to take the most of it and really change the perception because they are painted in such bad light, which is really devastating. Like all over the world, monkeys, baboons are always deemed troublemakers and destructive, which is not the case. If us as humans were maybe a bit cleaner and disposed of our rubbish and didn't feel the need to feed everything, there'd be a lot less problems. Wouldn't solve all the problems, of course, but I think that there would be a few less. Hello, Mr. Impala, just sneaking behind the baboons. I was hoping the Hammerkorp would stick around so we could potentially watch a fantastic sighting, something unusual, something different. I'm always really lucky. Those are the kinds of sightings that I get. Very itchy. Ah, there's the young ones fighting and squealing. But what a great hangout spot. Oh, there's the Hammerkorps trying to go into the hide. No, sir, that's only for photographers. Or ma'am, you can't go in there. Look at how infatuated the young baboons are of the big males. We see it with all species. I love watching it specifically with baboons and then also with lions. Just like they're looking for trouble, although they don't know that they're looking for trouble. And of course, not all of the adult males, whether it be a lion or, of course, a baboon, seeing as those are the two animals we're talking about, not every one of them is, as tolerant as some can be with the youngsters, but it's always quite amazing to see. But at this time of the year, we don't see as much conflict, and I'm quite comfortable in saying that because it is the short rains in Kenya at the moment. So everything is lush, everything is green, there's food available. Baboon territories won't be encroaching on one another because of the lack of resources. And you'll find that there'll mainly be just domestic fights amongst the individuals. But of course, there can always be a territorial dispute. But I'm sure that this troop owns this waterhole. You'll probably find that they sleep in and around the trees at the two lodges of Lentora. Lady Macbeth, you said, how else can you chase baboons off? Well, this is the thing. So, chasing a baboon that has become completely habituated to humans, right? And that has worked out how to pull sliding doors off of the rail, break the glass. I mean, you name it, open car doors. That's going to be quite difficult to chase around. And even at Juma, we see it with the vervet monkeys. They torment us like you cannot believe. There's a couple of the males get quite aggressive with us and actually come for you, which is so dangerous. So we keep away. So people will throw things at them. Obviously, it's not. I don't encourage that kind of behavior, um, but I would prefer that than shooting them. That's my preference. Of course, there's gonna be a lot of you going, no, that's not correct. Blah blah blah. Each to their own. That's why you'll see people that are trying to chase vervet monkeys and baboons away will often have a slingshot, and we'll try and just literally just try and encourage them to move off. The aim is not to hurt them, but a little sting on the bottom, might make them stay away for a few hours or hopefully even a day or two. An air horn might work. Just don't do it while they're up in the tree and you're down below. That would end really badly for you. You'd just end up being more upset at the baboons. You can guess what might happen. Snakes sometimes work, putting out like a rubber snake. I'll never forget at again Sabi, one of the lodges, I think it was Salati Lodge, they had a poster of the different snakes up in the guide's office. And you'd hear the baboons alarming and staring inside, and they would see the snakes on the poster, which was really funny. There's so many techniques, but the problem is if you put things out like snakes, rubber snakes, you can't do it all the time because eventually they're going to realize that they're not real, and that kind of defeats the point. Um, my dog Tucker is not allowed to chase baboons. He's not allowed to chase any wildlife, in fact, and he's really good about it. He follows geckos around the house. He points when a little mouse falls out the roof. He indicates when there are snakes. He doesn't go near them. So he's really a gentle giant. However, the vervet monkeys are a different story. So dogs can sometimes be a really good deterrent. Obviously, the last thing you want is them to catch and kill them. Tucker thinks it's a big game, and it's his favorite game in the whole wide world. You've never seen him so excited. He doesn't growl, he doesn't bark at them, he just wants to chase them. And it's great because the lodge that I live at, I just send him out and off he goes, and it keeps the monkeys away for 2 or 3 days, and then he comes back again, and then I let him do his job. So Tucker is the security vervet monkey chaser where I live. But baboons, he won't. Also, he doesn't chase anything without my permission. So the vervet monkeys, he doesn't run at. He sits and he looks at me to say, okay, you can go, and then I let him head on his way. And they're scared of him. Not that he's ever done anything to them, but that he's a big dog, so he does a good job. So just trying to deter them in different ways, but it's so tricky. Nadine has now said that Tucker keeps things in order. He does. I think that's the owners of the lodge love him. They're like, he can do anything. If he wanted to sit at a table and have dinner with all the guests one night, he could happily come and do that. He's just a really friendly dog, but then again, he really helps with the vervet monkey problem. And it's fine. They sit out and they graze in the open and do their thing. The other day I sat and I was laughing for ages. The baboons and the vervet monkeys, not near one another, but just at a like opposite ends of these two open areas. The alates, the reproductive termites, were being released, and the monkeys and the baboons were leaping up and down, doing backflips and somersaults, trying to catch them. It was hysterical. Obviously, Tucker stayed inside because he was not going to ruin that moment. So he only does it when he absolutely has to, when he's lingering around the lodges and the houses. Look at the impalas. It's like they're all waiting their turn to come and drink. Come on, little ones. Mike, you've asked, why would the baboons chase the impala off? I mean, you can see they're quite comfortable with each other's presence, but when it comes to competition around a food source or a water source, that's a completely different story. I'll tell you some really interesting stories, although I've only got 6 minutes left. So baboons are also hunters, right? They're omnivores. So baboons will catch young impalas, not necessarily at this time of the year. It's nice and green, but they still will, of course. Don't say no to an opportunistic creature. I had some crazy sightings again in the Lower Zambezi National Park. It's probably the best place I've ever experienced baboons, and just interesting interesting sightings, and then learning new things about baboons. So during the dry season, and there's no other food other than the pods from the winter thorn trees, the Faidherbia albidea trees, or anna trees as they're also known. And you'd watch the baboons as the elephants would like shake the trees, or the pods would fall down, and then every single animal you could think of that eats vegetation would arrive and try to pick up the pods on the ground. And I was watching the baboons make these piles in front of them, so they didn't have to get up and eat one at a time. They'd scoop all the pods. And this female impala came past and thought, wow, look at this pile of pods. And this female baboon grabbed hold of this impala ewe, grabbed her back leg, and would not let go. And she was bucking and she was bronking. It was insane. And this baboon just sat there holding her with one hand and shoveling pods into her mouth with the other. And I couldn't believe the strength, firstly, and the audacity, maybe the audacity of the impala to just help itself to the pile of pods. But yeah, that was fascinating. She did let go, and I don't think that impala will ever try and eat pods from a baboon ever again. Well, if she's sensible. Catherine, you said if I ever get a dog that you're going to need some training lessons from me. I'm by no means a trainer at all. I grew up with lots of dogs and big dogs, and I just know from having a big dog how frustrating it is when they jump on people. Firstly, they can hurt someone, to them barging through doors. So, there's also a number of reasons. I'm not trying to dominate Tucker, but like for him, we live in a wild area, so he's not allowed to charge outside. He sits and he waits at the door for me to check because often the warthogs are waiting on the other side. So you can imagine walking straight out into a warthog would be disastrous. So there's just certain things that I have done that I don't like it when certain dogs do to me. So the jumping, he's not allowed to jump unless he's asked to. He's not allowed to chase wildlife, but he's got it also comes down to his personality, and he is a very calm, shy, but also psychotic wild dog when he can be, and is crazy. So, and he also grew up in a restaurant, so he was never allowed inside. So if you ever you'll know I'm around, and you'll know I'm with Tucker if you hear somebody yelling out the kitchen to their dog. That's just out, get out for everything. Funny times. But I love that big Impala ram. Look at the size of his horns, and he's not even a really enormous Impala ram. They get so much bigger than that in East Africa, but he seems quite bossy. He's chasing everybody away. Just let everyone come and drink, boy. Joan Miller, you've said thank you to everybody at Wild Earth and to all the chatters, and you're wishing them a happy holiday. Of course, that goes without saying. And then Rosemary McCadney, sorry, you said that this was such a fun and gorgeous sight. Well, it's a pleasure. Thank you, animals, for playing ball. We've got the first brave Impala lamb. Are you going to come out and have a drink? Of course, there's been a couple of others, but look how hesitant they are of the water. Of course, animals know when they've grown up in areas where there are crocodiles to be wary of the waterhole. Can't say that there aren't any in here, but I know there are some river systems around where perhaps the crocodiles will be more happy. But then again, I always say I've seen crocodiles in stranger places than just a pool of water like this. But one would think if there was a croc, it would have tried to have grabbed one of the baboons already. But you never know. That's the exciting thing. And isn't it great that you have access to these live cameras 24/7, even when live at the waterhole is not happening? You can catch up and you can give me updates. So for those of you that are going to continue watching, make some notes because I will be here again tomorrow. Sure, that's a pregnant female sitting next to that a big male, big round belly, ready to pop. Maybe tomorrow we'll watch a baboon giving birth. Wouldn't that be great? But a big thank you, of course, to all of you for joining me on this special day. I hope that you all enjoyed it. And it's been great. It's been interesting. Lots of wildlife here and there. And we're just going to do it all again tomorrow. Wah! Big yawn from a male, although he didn't look like he had spectacularly large canines. Looked like a few of them are in some injuries. But have a great lunch, dinner, evening. Enjoy the holidays, however you may be celebrating them. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you again, and goodbye.